We begin today the Gemara on Daf Ayin Aleph Amud Beis, 4 lines from the bottom of the page where it says Iboya Lahu. So here the Gemara has another Iboya regarding the rights and the power of a husband to nullify his wife's Nedarim. So Iboya Lahu, the question was asked, Geidishin. What happens if a husband divorces his wife? And we're speaking about a husband divorcing his wife on the day she made a neder. Kishtike damya. The fact that he divorced her, is that equivalent to being quiet about the Nedarim that he heard? He didn't do anything. He didn't react. He didn't nullify. He didn't validate. He's just walking away. In other words, he's divorcing her, so it's zero. Or do I consider his divorcing her to be like he validated the neder? The fact that he's divorcing her, he hears the neder and doesn't say anything about it, he divorces her, what does that mean? He's telling her, keep your nedarim, I'm walking away from you. You're crazy, making these nedarim, I'm divorcing you. The very fact that he's divorcing her is a way that indicates that he really says to her, you know what, you want to have these nedarim? Have them! I'm divorcing you. So we consider the Gedish in itself to be a hakama, validation of the neder. So the Gemara asks, Lamai nafkemina, what difference does it make? What's the relevance of this? Either way, he's not her husband anymore. And after this, he won't be able to nullify her nedarim either way. Whether we consider it to be like he was quiet, whether we say that he validated it, the next day, nobody could nullify this neder for anyways. So the Gemara answers that the question really is relevant regarding the following. She made the neder. V'shama baila. And the husband heard on that day about the neder. V'girsha. And he divorced her. And va'hadra b'yaymei. But then he changed his mind and he remarried her on that very day. So now, here's going to be the difference. If the master will say, if you'll answer me and say, kishti kadami, that when he divorced her, that's equivalent to just being quiet, not reacting to this neder. So then, it's still the same day. So matzimei filo. So now you can come and nullify the neder when he remarries her. But if you're going to say that this is hakama, that once he divorced her, so this is considered to be like he completely already validated the neder. So if he remarries her too late, by divorcing her, you validated the neder. You're going to remarry her, you can't now nullify the neder. Okay, as we'll see in the continuation of the Gemara, this question the Gemara is asking her is not talking about a full marriage, but we're talking about a marriage of Edison. When there was a half marriage, that's when this question is relevant. We'll see in the continuation. Okay, so the Gemara, Tashema.
My husband marries is a new thing. It's finished right now.
What, when he marries her again?
Time.
When he marries her the second time, why? Lav dafka. We learned before that even a second husband gets the rights to be made for the nedarim of a first husband. So he himself remarries her, and she had nedarim before. He should get that rights as well by Edison. He should get those rights.
But what's the difference if it's the first marriage, second marriage over here? He went into the marriage with her already.
Okay.
So if someone marries a woman that has the drum from before, it could be made for them.
Yeah, in the case of Edison, if you have it from the Edison before, by Edison, the halacha is you could be made from the darim that she had from before. That's the halacha by Edison. That's the reason why this Gemara only applies by Edison. By Nesuin, if you're fully married, you can't be made from before, but by Edison you can. That's what we learned before. Let's see, the Gemara will explain. Toshema, so the Gemara says, let's bring back a brayso that we already quoted before. Mesai Amru, when was it said? Meisabal, if the husband died, what happens now? Again, we're talking about the husband dying after Edison. So in this time period, the husband and the father together are the ones that are nullifying the nedarim. So now when was it said that if the husband dies, nisreikna reshuslav? So she gets emptied, she gets poured into the father's reshus, and now the father alone could be made for all the nedarim, and he gets the rights that the husband had together with him. When is that? Bizman shaleshama abal. If the husband didn't hear about the nedarim she made when he was alive, or he heard and he nullified it, or he heard and he was quiet, and he died on that very day. The point that this brayso is saying is, in all these cases, he didn't validate the neder yet. So if he didn't validate the neder, when he dies, the father now gets the ability to nullify the entire neder. If the father would have heard, the husband. If the husband that just died would have heard and validated the neder, then when he dies, the father can't nullify the neder because the husband already validated it. But if the husband did not validate it yet, so then when he dies, the father now gets the full rights to nullify this neder. Now, says the Gemara, I'll prove to you from here regarding Gedushin. If you're going to say when a person divorces his wife, it's equivalent to being quiet, that he didn't nullify, he didn't validate. So listen, Nami, why doesn't the Braisa add this as well? When you say that the father gets the right to fully nullify his daughter's neder, say this case as well. Oy shama v'girish. If the husband heard his wife's neder and then he divorces her, what happens now when he divorces her? The father gets the full right to nullify the neder. Because when the husband divorced his wife, that's like he was quiet. So therefore the father could not go nullify. Why doesn't it mention this detail in the Braisa as well? If it's listing all the cases where the husband did not validate the neder, there should be another example. Some of the light Tani Hachi, the fact that the Braisa doesn't bring this option, Shmamina, doesn't that itself prove that Gedushin Karkamadami? If you divorced her, that's equivalent to validating the neder. So therefore the Braisa can't say in such a case that the father could now go ahead and nullify the Nedarim. So we have a raya from the Braisa. But the Gemara says, let's take a look at what it says in the next case of the Braisa. We also had this before. Then the Braisa says, in cases where the husband validated the neder, after he dies, the father will not be able to do anything. Avalim shama v'kiyim. If the husband, when he was alive, heard about the neder and validated it already. Oy shama v'shasak, he heard about it and he was quiet. So he passively validated the neder because umeis b'yom shel achrav. He died the next day. So he was quiet already the full day. So he validated it as well, passively. So now the father cannot nullify a neder that was already validated by the husband. Now, the Gemara says, let's ask the same question here. If you're going to say that divorcing your wife is equivalent to validating the neder, so listen, why doesn't the Braisa list this as well? Why should the Braisa should say, Nami, the Bachers adds, listen, Nami, oi, shama v'girish. Or another case, if he heard and he divorced his wife, that this is equivalent to validating the neder and that the father can't nullify it. So the Gemara says, the fact that the Braisa doesn't say this, so therefore it seems like that Gedushin, divorcing your wife, is considered to be just like being quiet. And therefore the father, after Gedushin, will be able to nullify these Nedarim. So we have one diak from the Reisha in one way, a diak from the Seifa in the opposite. The fact that both in the Reisha and the Seifa it skips this case of divorcing the wife, so you have a problem here. So the Gemara says, Elo mehal lekala mishmamine. From this Braisa I can't prove either way. And the Gemara explains, you have a contradiction in the Braisa, the diak of the Reisha and the diak of the Seifa. The Gemara says it's not a contradiction, because Reisha dafke, if the Reisha is precise, that the Reisha is telling you the halacha, that it's only those cases that it mentions that is considered to be that the husband did not validate. And Gedushin is considered to be a validation, that's why it doesn't mention it. So, Nasav Seifa Mishum Reisha. In the Seifa, the fact that it doesn't mention the case of Gedushin, it's only because he's telling you similar cases that it said in the Reisha. Seifa dafke, but if you're going to tell me the reverse, that the Seifa is dafke, and the Seifa does not want to mention the case of Gedushin, because Gedushin is considered to be just like him being quiet, and it's not considered to be a validation. So you're going to say the Seifa that skipped the case of Gedushin, that's dafke. So Nasav Reisha Mishum Seifa. So therefore, really, he should have brought up Gedushin in the Reisha, but it doesn't, because this Braisa wants to say the Reisha and the Seifa is just talking about similar cases in the Reisha and the Seifa, and it's leaving out Gedushin. So therefore, there's no raya from here regarding a case where a husband divorced his wife. Now the Gemara goes back, brings a raya from the Mishnah that we learned in Daf Ayin Aleph. The Mishnah they said, Toshama, let's see, the Nodra vihi arusa. Person's wife made a neder and she's an arusa, and then vinis garsha, she got divorced, vinis arsa boy bayayim, and on the very same day she got remarried to another husband. Afil lemeya, even if she got married to another husband and then that husband divorced her, and then another, even 100 different husbands, all of them, what's going to be the halacha? Avia u baila achrem b'finidra. The father and the last husband together are the ones that are made for another. That's the halacha we learned in the Mishnah. So now what do you see from this? The fact that we allow the father and the last husband to be made for the Nedarim, Shma Mina Gedushin Kishtikadami. So that must be that when the first or any following husband divorces her, that's equivalent to being quiet. The Ika Kamadami. If you're going to say that divorce itself is equivalent to validating the Neder, Mi Matzi Aris Achrein, Meifa Aris Achrein Nidi the Oikim Aris Rishain. Could a later husband nullify any of the Nedarim that a previous husband already validated? That can't be. So this halach in the Mishnah itself proves to me that the divorce is just considered to be like being quiet. Says the Gemara, not necessarily. Hacha b'maya skinan, we could say, what is this Mishnah speaking about? B'shaloi shama oris rishain. When the first husband did not hear about the Nedarim. He divorces his wife, but he didn't know about the Nedarim. That's when I say that the Gedushin is not considered to be like a nullification. Like a validation, that is. If he had heard about the Nedarim, then the very fact that he's divorcing her, we'll consider that to be a validation. But the Gemara asks on this, if so, my area boy by yoim. If so, why does the Mishnah say that he divorced her on that in his garsha and his arsa boy by yoim, that he divorced her and another husband married her on that very same day that she made the neder? What's the relevance of boy by yoim? He didn't even hear about the neder. Who cares if it's boy by yoim or not? Afil lachem mei yomim nami. I could even say after 100 days, if you divorced her and someone else married her, the same halacha will apply because the husband didn't hear about the neder. So the words boy bayim in the Mishnah is mashma that the husband did hear about it. And still I say that divorcing her is like shtika, is like him being quiet. It's not like he validated the neder. So the Gemara answers, not necessarily. Kishaloi shama oris, we could still say that the husband did not hear about these nedarim. So why does it say boy bayim? Because v'shama ha'av, the father did hear about the nedarim. The boy bayim hu the matzi mefer. The father could only be made for the nedarim that he heard on that very day. Right? The halacha regarding both the husband and the father is that you could only be made for nedarim on the day that you heard it. So when it mentions boy bayim, it's saying regarding the father that the father could be made for nedarim on that day that he heard it. Av mekan velach le matzi mefer. But on the following days he will not be able to be made for it. Okay, so there's no raya from this Mishnah. The conclusion from what the Gemara is saying over here is that the case of the Mishnah speaking about that the husband did not hear about it. Before, the Gemara in the Afayin Aleph Amid Aleph, actually, over there it said in the name of Shmuel that the case is that the husband did hear about it. Over here the Gemara is saying that the case is that the husband did not hear about it. And when the Mishnah says boy bayim, there's really no chiddush in saying boy bayim. Why does it have to say boy bayim? Even though the Gemara just answered, boy bayim is regarding the father, that the father could only be made for the neder on that day. There's really no chiddush in that. We always know that a father could be made for the neder on that day. If the boy bayim refers to the husband, that the husband heard the neder and he divorced her, there's a chiddush in the boy bayim. That even though he divorced her, the divorce is not a validation. The divorce is considered to be just like him being quiet. But the Gemara's maskan over here is that the words boy bayim really have no chiddush to it. There's no raya from here. Okay.
Yeah, you could say that the Baal heard it that day, but he has a whole day still.
No, but he divorced her though. True, but he divorced her. No, but he divorced her on that day. Correct. So if he divorced her, the question is that divorce just like him stam being quiet? And theoretically he can remarry her and then divorce her and then nullify it in the remainder of the day? Or no, once he divorced her, it's too late. It's a validation. Okay, Tashema.
The divorce of validation.
Right. Tashema, the Gemara brings a raya from another Mishnah later in the Masechta. Seems to be a clear raya here. The Mishnah says, Nadra boy bayim. She made a neder, and then boy bayim girsha, or Nadra boy bayim girsha, and then he divorced her. Zira boy bayim, and he remarried her on that day. And yachal hafer. He cannot nullify the nedarim that she made when he was married to her the first time. He remarried her a second time. He could only be made for the nedarim now of this marriage, not of the previous marriage. So over here we clearly see Shmami no. This is exactly what our Shiloh was about. Geidishin kakamadamu. That once he divorced her, so all the nedarim she made in the previous marriage have been validated. Now he remarries her again. So in the second marriage, he could only be made for the new nedarim, not from before. That's been validated already. So the Gemara says, like I already pointed out before, that here he's fully married. It's a different story. Amri hacha b'nesua askinan. Over here the case is that he had fully married her and then he divorced her, full nesuin, and now here as well he fully married her. And v'haina time then yachal hafer, the reason why he can't be made for the nedarim of the previous marriage, mishum de'ein habal yach mefer b'koidmen. There's a difference between Edison and Nisuin. When a person is married to his wife, only Edison, the half marriage, and she's still living in her father's house, because the husband is made for the Nedarim together with the father, so the father has the rights on his daughter from birth, so the husband could be made for the Nedarim that she even made before he married her, Bachlal. So therefore here we would have a shaila. If he had married her once, married her a second time, if it's only a half marriage, the husband has a right to be made for from before. So if the Geidishin is not considered to be a validation, for the neder, he's able to be made from before. But over here, this Mishnah that we quoted is speaking about that he fully married her. Once you fully marry your wife, you're being made for the Nedarim alone, not together with the husband. When you're being made for alone, you could only be made for from the time of marriage, not from before. So that's why it's saying from the previous marriage, you can't be made for, you're being made for alone, it's only from this marriage. Sagt Heilige Mishnah, Derech Talmidei Chachamim. It's the way, it's the minig of the Talmidei Chachamim. So apparently the Mishnah is telling you the derech of the Talmidei Chachamim in order for everybody to follow in their footsteps. That before a person's daughter left the father's house and came, and this is again, when the daughter remains in the father's house during the time of Edison, and she's leaving the father's house to go live with her husband, the second stage of marriage, full marriage, so before she leaves the father's house, so the husband makes sure that the father tells her, Kol Nedarim shenadarta b'toich beisi. All those Nedarim that you made when you were still living with me in my house, it should all be nullified. V'chein abal, similar, the husband says, before she enters into his rishus, Aimelai tells her, Kol Nedarim shenadart, Achalei tekansi l'rishusi, all those Nedarim that you made before you enter into my rishus, it should all be nullified. And the Gemara explains regarding the husband, she's marrying him. Why can't he be made for those Nedarim after she marries him? Because once he marries her, he will not be able to nullify those Nedarim that she made before marriage. The exact point that we just learned. That you could only nullify those Nedarim that she makes after marriage, but not from before marriage. But in the time period of Edison, you could be made for those Nedarim. So before you fully marry her, you want to make sure that your wife, whatever Nedarim that may then be later an issue on Shalom Bayis, make sure that there'll be no issue of Shalom Bayis, and therefore the father and the husband should be made for all the Nedarim in advance. Before he gets fully married to her.
But these Nedarim were made before.
Yeah, and he had that at this point he has the ability to be made for them. Once he marries her, it's going to be too late.
Even after the same day?
Okay, so the day that you hear about them, Okay, so now here the Gemara is going to discuss this. What not the father, not the husband, heard about these Nedarim. They're just saying any Nedarim that you have upon yourself should be mufra. But do they even know that she made Nedarim, what they are, right? So the Gemara, let's see. The Gemara starts with a question. Rami Bachame had asked a shaila, Baal, Mao sheyofer b'lo shmiyah. Can a husband, and really this is not only a shaila about a husband, the same shaila about a father or anybody that could be made for the neder only on the day that you heard it. So could you be made for the neder without even hearing it? You're afraid that your wife may have made a neder, so you say to her, if you made any neder today, it should be nullified. Does that work? So Vishama Isha, the Torah says the husband heard about the neder and then he could nullify it. Dafka, is that when the Torah says he heard, it means dafka if he heard? I love dafka that is. Maybe it's saying usually a husband that's not paranoid will only be made for the Nedarim after he heard about it. But if he's very suspicious, so then he could be made for it even before as well. Amar Rave, so Rave says, don't we have a clear eye from our Mishnah? Tashema, what did our Mishnah say? Derech Talmidei Chachamim, regarding the father. First, the Gemara focuses on the father. The Mishnah said regarding the father, before the daughter leaves the father's house, the father tells her, any Nedarim that you made when you were living in my house should be nullified. So the Gemara says, but the father didn't hear about the Nedarim, and still the father is saying to her, any of those Nedarim that you made should be nullified. How's he nullifying without hearing them? So you clearly see that you could nullify the neder even if you didn't hear. So the Gemara says, no, what the Mishnah actually means is, lichi shama. He tells her that the neder should be nullified when I hear about it. Lichi shama hu de mefer. When he hears it, that's when he's going to nullify the nedarim. That's what the Mishnah means to say. So the Gemara right away asks on this answer, how could you say that the father is saying, when I'm going to hear about it, then I'm nullifying the neder? Im kain ki loy shama. So if he doesn't know about any nedarim yet, lama le'lemeima. What's the point of him saying that when I hear, then, what's the point of him saying that any nedarim that you made should be nullified if the nullification doesn't take effect? And he's only going to nullify it when he hears about it. So the Gemara answers, Hakamash Malan. This is what the Mishnah is saying to me. Orche, the Tziburim Rabbanon, that it's the minig, it's the custom of the Talmidei Chachamim lahaduri, to have the father tell the daughter this in order to get the information out of his daughter. When the father is going to tell her that I want all Nedarim that you made to be nullified, so then she's going to speak up. She's going to say, well, let me think, do I have Nedarim? Did I ever say something without Bli Neder? And she might remind herself actually that she has Nedarim. So true, right now the Nedarim are not nullified because he didn't hear about them yet, but by the father saying this will get the information out of her, and then he will nullify the Neder after he hears about it. So there's no raya from our Mishnah. Tosha Mami Seifer, the Gemara says, but from the next point that the Mishnah said, similar to the husband, before his wife enters in his reshus, into his possession fully, so when he is still in the stage of Edison, the husband says to his wife that he's going to be made for that he's being made for any of her Nedarim, even though he didn't hear about it. So here as well, the Gemara is assuming that he's being made for the Nedarim without him hearing about it. So you see that he doesn't have to hear. Answers the Gemara, Hachanami, here as well I could say, the Amala, that he tells her, L'chi Shemaina. So here there's actually two pshatim in the Gemara. If you guide us in the Gemara the way we have it here, so then L'chi Shemaina means that the husband is saying to her that when I hear about your Nedarim, they should be nullified. And what that actually means is that when the husband hears about the Nedarim, he doesn't have to nullify it again. He's nullifying it today, and he's telling her, I understand that my nullification today will not take effect because I didn't hear about your Nedarim. I may hear about it only after we get fully married. But when we get fully married, and then I'm going to discover the Nedarim that you're going to make, because I'm going to be living with you, and all of a sudden I'll see your behavior, certain things that you don't want to do, and I'll discover those Nedarim. So then the hafara should take effect. That's what the Gemara is saying. L'chi Shemaina, then the hafara that I'm making today, so the hafara is today, but it takes effect, it's going to take effect later. And this is different than the answer that the Gemara said before regarding the father. A father can't say to his daughter that I'm being made for to you today, and it's going to be taking effect later after I hear about it. Because once he hears about it, it's too late. She already got fully married to her husband. Over here, she's marrying this husband. Elamai, if he's not going to say anything to her today, once he's fully married to her, at the time period of Nisuin, he can't be made from the Nedarim from before the Nisuin. But if he says the Hafara today, then it could take effect later when he hears about it, retroactively. That's the Chiddush of the Gemara when it says this Lashon L'chi Shemaina. That's the Girsa that we have in our Gemara. But there is another Girsa that the Gemara here is saying the exact same answer as before, L'chi Shama, that the Hafara will only be when he hears about it. Okay, which has to be before Nisuin, which is only before Nisuin. Okay, which is similar to what it says before regarding the father. But this is the Girsa we have in our Gemara. Okay, the Gemara goes weiter from another Braisa here. Toshama, a person says to his wife, Kol Nedarim shetaduri acha avei mimakim ploni. Any Nedarim that you will make from in the time period, he's leaving the house. He's not going to be home. He's afraid that his wife is going to say all kinds of crazy things. She'll make Nedarim. So he says to her, any Nedarim that you'll make in this time period until I come back home from this place, harehein kayamin. He tells her, you know what? You want them, these Nedarim? I validate them now in advance. Gesundheit, feel free. Lo yama klum. To validate them in advance, that's worthless. If he said that, hey, mufarin, he tells her in advance that whatever Nedarim you make in the time period that I'm not here, they should be nullified. Rabbi Eliezer mufar. So Rabbi Eliezer says that he can say now in advance that it should be nullified. So the Gemara now says, but the husband didn't hear about those Nedarim. How could he say that they should become nullified? So the Gemara answers, Hachanami over here as well. The pshat is the Amma. What he's saying is L'chi Shemaina. I'm doing the nullification. I'm telling you now in advance that it's nullified. And when is it going to take effect? It's only going to take effect when I hear about it. When I come back home and I hear about these Nedarim you make, then it'll take effect. So the Gemara asks, V'lamali min hashta. So then why is he nullifying it today? So then when he's going to hear, L'chisham aleifallah. So when he hears about it, let him nullify the Nedarim then. Well, yeah. So the Gemara says, Kesava, because the husband thinks to himself, Dilme matridna hahi shaita. So maybe then I'm going to be busy, and my wife made this nether, another nether, and I'm not going to have the focus and the attention to be made for the Nedarim at that time. So therefore he's saying in advance, whatever Nedarim you make when I'm not here should be nullified, and automatically when I hear about it, I don't have to be made for it, it'll take effect automatically. So he wants to make it in advance so they shouldn't forget later. So there's no raya from here. Again, the point is we see that the nullification only takes effect, we could say that it only takes effect when he hears about it. Tashema, the Gemara brings that I from another brayso, Eimula Petropis. A person says to a caretaker. Here again, we're speaking about someone that goes out of town. So he appoints a caretaker to make sure his wife has what she needs, to feed her, and so on. Kol Nedarim shenideres ishtis. He also tells his caretaker, any Nedarim that my wife makes, mikan v'acha'avim mimakim ploini, from in this time period when I come back from that place, hofer. You should nullify first. He's basically appointing this caretaker as a shliach, that he should be the one nullifying the Nedarim for the husband. And v'hachferla. And this caretaker went and did so. He listened and he nullified the Nedarim of this wife. I would think that the husband has an ability to appoint this caretaker as a shliach to nullify the Nedarim. Talmud Laima, the pasuk says, Isha, the husband, yikimenu v'isha yifirenu, and only her husband can nullify the Nedarim. There's no shlichus for this. Divrei Rabbi Yeshua. That's Rabbi Yeshua's opinion. The husband himself has to either validate or nullify the Nedarim. Amalei Rabbi Yonasan, so Rabbi Yonasan argues and says, no. Even though here it says the husband, true, yeah, it says in the pasuk that the husband has to do it, but nevertheless, we apply the halacha of shlichus of the entire Torah. Mitzinu b'chol ha'Torah kula. We find in the entire Torah, shluchai shel adam kamaisai, that whatever a person himself could do, he could appoint someone else in his place to do the same thing as him. Just like you could appoint someone else to go and be mekadesh isha or to be megadash isha, you could appoint a shliach to nullify her nedarim as well. So there is a halacha of shlichus over here. Okay, so that's the machlekes, whether there is shlichus or not. But now, the Gemara is going to focus on the detail that we're discussing here. Either way, though, the husband didn't hear about this. The husband didn't hear the nedarim that were being made. When Rabbi Yeshi says that the husband can't appoint a shliach, why did he say so? Only because there's a gzeiris hakasov. He understands when it says isha yikimenu, isha yifirenu. I guess he learns this is considered to be extra words, and therefore it's coming to say dafkim and not a shliach. Gzeiris hakasav ishi yikimenu, ishi yifirenu. That only him. Aval the kula alma, but the kula alma shlucha shaladam kamaisa. But otherwise, everybody would agree that you would apply the halacha of shlichus over here. The question is, how could you apply shlichus? The husband didn't hear about this. You're going to say, who cares if the husband didn't hear about this? He appointed a shliach, and the shliach heard it. So why can't the shliach nullify what he heard? So the answer is, Ran explains, that he's trying to explain over here, the rule by shlichus is, you could never appoint a shliach to do something if you yourself can't do it. That's whatever you yourself could do, you could appoint a shliach to do. If the husband didn't hear about it, he himself can't nullify it, according to what we're thinking now. So if he can't nullify it because he didn't hear it, how could he appoint someone else to be a shliach what he himself can't do? Shliach can't do more than the mishaleach. So in other words, the Gemara is trying to prove, even if the husband didn't hear about it, he could nullify the nedarim. So therefore, he could appoint the shliach to be made for the nedarim. Rabbi Yeshi says you can't appoint the shliach because it's a gzeiris hakasov, but without that gzeiris hakasov, everybody would agree that you could appoint the shliach. So it must be that the husband doesn't have to hear about it in order to be made for the nedarim. So the Gemara gives a similar answer to that said before. Let's just finish the end. Another 2.5 lines here. Over here as well, he told the shliach that when I'm going to hear about it, so then I'm going to be mefer the nedarim. Then l'chishamayna meferla, or l'chishamayna meferla does not mean that he's going to be mefer it. The Gemara uses the word mefer. It sounds like the Gemara is saying that the husband will be mefer, but others are going to say hofrla. What he's saying to the shliach is, you be mefer the nedarim. I'm not going to be mefer the nedarim. The husband didn't hear about it. So how could the shliach do something the husband can't do? What he's telling the shliach is, you do the hafaras nedarim, but it won't yet take effect because you don't have the power. I didn't hear about it. When I'll hear about it, then the hafara that you have done will take effect retroactively. We'll take, yeah. So, or like I said, some are good to hafala. So so the Gemara asks on this, similar to what it asked before, if so, lichishama leifrula. If it only takes effect when the husband hears about it, so basically when the husband comes back home, so let him be made for the nedarim then when he comes back home. So the Gemara says, hu sava, because the husband thinks, dilme matridna. Maybe I'm going to get busy, and therefore I'm not going to be able to be made for the nedarim then. So therefore he appoints the shliach. Similar to what we said before. So he wants to take care of matters in advance. I'm not going to get into this whole arichas, but just to point out that Ran says that in the Gemara and Nazir, there's a continuation of the discussion there. Because if the husband is concerned about the future, that he might be too busy, so why does he have to appoint a shliach? Anyways, the neder is not taking effect until, the hafara is not taking effect until later. So let him himself, now, today, be made for the nedarim. Tell his wife, any nedarim you're making in the future when I'm out of town, like the Gemara said before, are going to be made, nullified, and they'll take effect when I come home and I hear about it. Why does he have to appoint a shliach? So the Gemara there in Nedarim explains exactly that this person is very paranoid, and therefore he could only do it through a shliach. We're going to learn in Nazir not long from now, a couple of weeks, and we'll see over there the continuation of the discussion.